While I could talk about the intricacies of compression ratios, firing order, tuning, camshafts, and header configurations and how they all affect sound, I'm not going to, because that's for nerds. Boxers, flats, V's, W's, bazungas, chimichangas,
Doritos.
Each engine configuration makes a sound as distinct as the instruments in an orchestra. And at their best, these instruments can create a blazing trail which accumulates into a passing symphony that leaves behind an unforgettable wake. And this is just me trying to sound smarter than I really am. What I'm really just trying to say is that, look, cars make really good sound of which is like music to most of us, or rather to some of us. The real tragedy lies in the fact that to most non-car enthusiasts, it's all just annoying nonsense blaring. And that's understandable when you consider that just like with genres of music, it's not for everyone, and even if it is the right genre, if performed terribly, they're not gonna like it anyway. When it comes to instruments like cars, most of them just aren't tuned right, whether that's because the factory didn't have the budget to do so, or because some adolescent child has attention-seeking issues and made their car sound as loud as possible with no actual regard to tone. The same teenager that blares by in a fart can Honda is very comparable to a crying baby in the grocery store. That crying baby is only using its vocal cords to get attention, but based on that sole interaction, you can't come to the conclusion that that's all vocal cords are good for, especially when you realize that talented singers can do so much more. In that same vein, a very well-made car can do so much more with sound than just a fart can Civic blaring by. A lot of cars don't sound the way they should, and aside from being akin to an instrument out of tune, it also has to do with the drivers themselves, their shift points, how much they rev out, and most importantly, just their personality in general. That's going to determine what modifications they've done in the first place, and why their car is ultimately going to sound the way it does. And there absolutely exist terrible singers with absolutely zero talent for the instrument that they play, but they're still gonna sing and make everyone's ears ring out regardless. And in that same way, there's gonna be people with crappy cars that for some reason want the rest of the world to hear them, even though no one really wants to hear them. But the difference is you can eventually tell a human to shut up, but with cars it's just a continuous blah, blah, blah. Fart cans. One day some degenerate woke up one morning and decided that his sole goal in life was to be the biggest tumor possible, so he invented the fart can, an invention with the single purpose of trying to be as loud as possible in order to attract as much attention as possible and make up for the fact that no one has or ever will love them, not even their parents. The fart can comes in 3 flavors, all equally packed with immeasurable disappointment: lawnmower, vacuum, and beehive. Eventually though, people realized that Honda also makes lawnmowers, which is much cheaper than fart canning their actual Honda automobile. The same could be said about buying a Dyson vacuum or getting stung to death at your local beehive-infested orchard. But as humankind continued to evolve in the recent decades, people got to the point where their brain became big enough to finally comprehend that cars should indeed sound like cars, and not like vacuuming lawnmower beehives. Except for Gran Turismo developers, so they had to steal some sound designers from Forza. Eventually, the straight pipe was finally invented. Now people could be just as loud and obnoxious as fart cans while still sounding somewhat like a car. Just always remember that no matter how fast your car goes or how loud it is, you'll never escape the fact that you're a massive disappointment to your family. It's not a phase, Mom. At least I'm listening to real music and not those mind-numbing pop songs, especially the manufactured ones in Korea. The irony of straight piping is that it's not even the best for performance, as X-pipes make more peak horsepower and H-pipes offer more low-end torque. In fact, the same could really be said about all the exhaust components. Gone are the days where we had a plethora of choices for mid-pipes and headers. The rapid need and greed for efficiency has made it where only a few select components are always at the ready, only from a few select companies. This has led to an overabundance of X-pipe shorties and mid-lengths, so if people don't want to deal with those, the only other cheap alternative is to just visit your local muffler shop and have them cut anything off that doesn't remotely resemble a cylinder. What happened to when performance shops are more excited to do custom stuff, 180 headers, helix pipes, or other crazy shit that just makes cars sound like driving symphonies. While those shops certainly still exist, it comes at a ridiculous premium. And even with the premium in mind, a lot of them are still disappearing because a lot of the larger companies are slowly consuming the smaller shops and adding them to their ranks. This ends up further homogenizing the amount of choice we have, which is only even further homogenized by the fact that the consumers within the market are also not really wanting anything other than X pipes and straight pipes. You go on a Mustang website, look for Mustang mid pipes, and bam, you've got hundreds of X pipe options, and if you don't want an X pipe, just go to the thousands of local muffler shops you can visit and just get a straight pipe instead. Anyone and their mom with a welding tool can make a straight pipe. And it's really tragic, because when you finally do find the 2 H pipes and 1 Helix pipe on the website, they end up getting removed from the website a few weeks later because those companies end up closing down and those products are discontinued. It's led to a phenomenon where every modded version of a car sounds like every other modded version of that car, the only difference being in performance and volume. One system may be less restrictive or not accompanied with resonators and cats, but the overall shape of the systems are kind of just the same. So you're probably wondering, well, Bladed, you big dum-dum, why did you waste so much money on an elaborate 180 header setup with a Helix mid-pipe then? To which my answer is, you're right, I am a huge dum-dum. Compared to anything else on the market, my custom system is hopelessly outmatched in terms of performance. It's heavier, it's restrictive, and tuned to the point that it's mostly based on carrying the sound all the way through its power band, even if that meant that it wouldn't be the most performance possible tune. Not to mention, it's expensive, like insanely expensive. Make a request as ridiculous as make my Corvette sound like a Ferrari. You're basically asking for a deep and rumbly car to become high-pitched and smooth, and even professional shops are going to turn you down over and over and over until you find that one shop that's crazy enough to take the offer, and even then, they have to go through a few prototypes before making just the right delivery. And those prototypes aren't free, because unlike a giant manufacturer like Borla or Corsa who can afford to make as many experimental prototypes as possible, they do so knowing that the product will eventually be mass produced and the profit will accrue the initial expense. However, when you commission a local shop, any expense they obtain will be added to your bill, front to back, headers to the tips. Usually you could get a system for a Z06 for like $2,500 to $3,000. How much did I pay? Well, $5,000. Was it worth it? Absolutely. Wait, did you think the video was over? No. We've only gone through exhaust sounds. This video is about all car sounds. What's that? Oh, you know it. It's time to drift, baby.